What happened in practice for the Miami Grand Prix? Let's move to our first talking point. Nick de Vries still struggling. Now, I actually thought this session started at hour. So I whacked on the TV about 10 minutes in, maybe 15 minutes into FP1, and we missed Nick de Vries spinning off and damaging the car already. My prediction's in the bin.
He spun off early in the session. From what I've seen, damaged the car and didn't actually go out for the rest of FP1, and then also got noted for dangerous driving, just to make it even worse.
By going backwards around the track to do a spin turn. I mean, that sounds like F1 game lobby kind of stuff, where you do a hot lap and then you do a 180 to come back into the pits rather than doing a whole nother lap because you just want to speed it up. Anyway, question from @Jones_RF873. Are AlphaTauri the worst car on the grid? They're very much down there. I think they have been for most of this season, really. They've not shown any real signs of improvement, apart from Tsunoda scoring a point or two. That's been more the fact I think Yuki has outdriven the car, if anything.
I don't think there is a far and away the worst car, like maybe years gone by where Williams was so far behind everyone else and then Haas was so far behind everyone else. I don't think there's one car that's, a second off the pace and is always kind of the meme getting laps. I think every team has scored a point already, so it just shows that there's not really a bad car in there. But the AlphaTauri certainly isn't great, and particularly when they've got Nick de Vries at the wheel.
Yes, he needs to pick up his game. He has to have a great weekend now. No excuses, I think, for Nick de Vries. Another driver that crashed was Nico Hulkenberg, who lost it out of turn 2, just got off the racing line ever so slightly, and the car just went round. He just lost it. You saw there was a slight bit of correction on the steering wheel out of turn 2, washed him wide, round he goes, and then, front right was smashing into the wall. And you did a funny tweet, Tommy, which I'll allow everyone for you to share to everyone.
I just found it slightly amusing that, Hulkenberg was running in the top 3 when he spun and hit the wall, which is just, you just couldn't write it, could you? Sometimes the jokes write themselves.
And I think that's all the drivers that crashed in either FP1 or FP2, isn't it, Tommy? We don't need to speak about anyone else at any point during the rest of this video. Let's focus quickly still on FP1. Mercedes were fastest, and we were wondering, hold on a second, what's going on? I very nearly tweeted for the 18th time, Mercedes are back, ? But I didn't. I just didn't want to do it. I'm glad I didn't, because FP1 was not representative at all when you looked at FP2. And the times there, I think Max Verstappen went a whopping 2.2 seconds quicker in FP2 than FP1. And that's purely just down to the fact that it's a new track surface. And that means the track is as green, and green meaning low grip, as you can possibly find a track, I would say. And then as the cars go round, of course, the rubber gets laid down and it gets quicker and quicker. And so the evolution is even more so around Miami. So yes, as much as Mercedes fans might have got excited, as soon as FP2 started, the excitement soon faded, I think.
Yeah, it didn't really matter in the end. When you had that first session, it was like, oh, hang on a minute. But no, the track evolution is so extreme here because it is a dusty boy, and that's exactly what Hulkenberg found. We'll talk about this a bit later, but tiny bit offline, and you're having a bad time.
Oh, I think that swiftly kind of moves into FP2, doesn't it? And going offline and potentially making mistakes. And okay, Charles Leclerc crashed at the end of FP2. But yes, it was, again, an error, a very small error, but one that has quite big consequences, even though you wouldn't think on paper, when you look at that corner, you go, oh, there's plenty of runoff. It's fine. But the problem is, Charles Leclerc got a swapper, and then by the time he actually corrected it, he's still going at too fast of a speed to be able to slow it down. Then you lock up, and then you're straight in the wall. Front right was absolutely crumbled.
No major damage done, really. He came on the radio and said, the car's fine. They were talking about, the floor and all that kind of stuff.
They've got a lack of spare parts for this weekend in terms of the new floor and so on. So hopefully we're all good.
Ferrari looking pretty good, has to be said. Looking like they're the second fastest car again. So it's not like it's an absolute nightmare day for Ferrari. I think they can be pretty happy with finishing second and third in FP2.
Sainz looking a little bit better this weekend. I think that's probably worth mentioning after his very under par Baku performance and him not having confidence in the car. I think that when he looks at that FP2 session, especially with his teammate, as much as he wouldn't be happy to see his teammate in the wall, but he'll be like, it's not just me. And sometimes Charles will struggle with the car as well. And he's done all right so far.
It doesn't happen all that often. Not in the last this year and the season gone by. So, Sainz is looking pretty tidy around here.
Question from @Conman81. Is Checo actually this slow, or is he just holding back his pace for qualifying and the race on Sunday? I mean, saying this slow, he's just over 4/10 slower at the end of FP2. I don't think we can analyse it too much. I think Checo has looked pretty good. He's had moments of blistering pace, but then getting held up in that horrible sort of sequence of corners towards the end of the lap before the back straight, where there's loads of cars usually there and drivers not getting a clear lap. And that's going to be interesting to watch in Q1, especially tomorrow, where traffic could play a very big part, and some drivers may even get some sort of penalty. So I don't think Perez is that far off. I think Verstappen may well have a 10th or 2 in hand, but I don't think it's as big as Perez being as slow as the Ferraris, in my opinion. What do you make of it, Tommy? Do you think Perez is going to be slower than the 2 Ferraris?
I don't think you can write Perez off just from a practice session.
Now, one big talking point is around the track itself. Is it going to be a terrible race? Is overtaking going to be difficult? Well, the FIA decided, let's make it more difficult before the weekend even begun by shortening the DRS zone on the back straight. So that's right, Tom, isn't it? It's a later activation zone.
2 of them have been shortened.
Two of them. Yeah. You'd think the only reason they would do that is if there is a genuine safety concern. But as far as I'm aware, that's not the case. But not only that is one of the concerns for us around overtaking. It's very dirty offline, as we saw with Hulkenberg, as we saw with Charles Leclerc, as we saw with Hamilton, I think, at one point. So many of the drivers just making a very tiny error off the racing line, and all the grip goes. That they lose the car, they might crash, whatever. So as much as on one side you go, the drivers might make mistakes, it'll make for an exciting race. You look at it the other side, you go, but how do overtakes happen? They have to go offline.
Yeah, and that was the main problem last year, and it sounds just as bad this year. So no one can even attempt an overtake during the race, because otherwise you're just going to... it's not even the fact that you're going to have to brake offline. You'll dirty your tyres up, and then you're going to struggle into the next few corners.
But the problem is, what are they going to do about it moving forward? Miami is obviously here to stay as a racetrack, and they're loving it. I think that they can't say a bad word about it either. All the commentary, the presenting team, everything you see is, oh my God, America is incredible. I even heard, Martin Brundle saying...
I know exactly what you're going to say.
Look at the crowd. They're absolutely buzzing. And you see the camera pan, and you see half-filled grandstands. I remember looking at the footage going, there's actually not that many people there.
Whether it was deliberate or not, that was one of my takeaways from practice, that I just feel like a lot of the coverage and everything was kind of almost like they were trying to convince themselves how great it was, even when it wasn't. You don't have to lie about there being a massive crowd when there isn't. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. And don't get me wrong, I was lucky enough to be in Miami last year, and I saw a bit of the action on the Friday. And I loved it. I thought it was an amazing experience. Like, actually being there, everything they did, all the things they put up was awesome, and the vibes were great. But that didn't make me ever think, God, this circuit is well good. I just remember looking at it going, yeah, this has been restricted slightly because they have to go round a stadium. Same with you, Tommy. I just don't like the fact that they try and hype the things that are worth hyping. Don't hype the things that you can literally see before your eyes are not hype worthy, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Miami's going to be quite something to experience. We're all going to be there, probably moaning about it on Twitter, but we'll have a great time doing it, and we'll be there with you tomorrow for qualifying. Fingers crossed it'll be a banger, and we'll see you very soon tomorrow for another video/podcast. Bye!
Bye!
It's time for bed.